Hello everybody and welcome to another photo mishmash. I'm Toby.
And I'm Christina.
And you just walked in the door like
I did.
30 seconds ago.
Yep. Hello.
One of the downsides of live shows is that if things like engagement photo shoots in single degree weather runs a little long, we might not start exactly on time. But hey, we are pretty close. I think everything sounds good. Chat room, let us know. And yes, Ursula, we have made sure that Christina's mic is on, but I do appreciate you checking. I learn slowly, slowly. Don't laugh at that. One of the things, I get a lot of comments about audio, not just on this podcast, because we struggle a little bit to get it all right. But one of the things that I have on loan from B&H is a nice pair of studio headphones, these Senels right here. And oh, it's doing that thing.
What thing?
That thing. Turn on the technical difficulties thing. And
Turn off the thing?
what does that mean, turn off the thing?
Turn off the experiencing technical difficulties?
Yes. And we still sound good. I'm just going to keep wearing these headphones for a few minutes so that I can hear my own voice. Okay. I think we're back. One of the best things, I can't wear these and talk at the same time because there's a slight delay. One of the best things about coming to the workshop is I can guarantee there'll be no audio difficulties. I thought we had this beat, but still seems to be an issue, but folks are saying it's fine. So, all right, we'll keep our eyes out over there and proceed again.
quite sure what's causing this.
Clearly, because we run, in this case, I ran for a half an hour prior to the show of just streaming without sending out live. No issues.
Yeah.
So, now that we got that fixed, a reminder, hit the thumbs up button. Say, yay, we can hear you, and hopefully it'll keep working like it did last week after we bumped over that bug.
Restarted everything.
Continuing on, talking about sponsors. So, Seattle Workshop, April 4th. Information's at photorec.tv/shop. Also, a reminder that you can join us on Worldwide Travels with McKay Photography. This is all in the show notes, links to that. We have spots still available to Greece and New Zealand. Less spots available to New Zealand than when we talked to you last time. At this time, I believe there are only 4 spots available now. So 4. If you are interested, find that link right down below in the show notes and let David know. Make sure you tell him you came through us. I was going to say one other thing. Oh, and just to mention, you know, we just heard that baby animals trip that's happening in June, we don't believe we're going to be part of that because of our wedding schedule. They're going to have a baby tiger along with all kinds of more North American type wildlife. And then, of course, the helicopter trip up to on top of a glacier for more scenic and animal photography up there as well. So that's going to be an amazing trip, and that's coming up just in June. Again, the one link below will get you to all of this information. And the last sponsor we want to take a moment and thank, and we're going to be hearing more about again as we do from time to time, is Squarespace. Squarespace.com/Toby can get you 10% off your order. Now, one of the things that's really nice about Squarespace is 2-week free trial without even putting in your credit card information. The other day I wanted to reach out to some folks on LinkedIn, and I had to go to the premium account level, and right away it's free for 30 days, but you got to give them all your credit card information, and then you got to remember to cancel it if you don't want it. That feels kind of crummy, although they did say they'll send me an email. But with Squarespace, you got to believe that they believe in their product. If they're like, here, just try it for 2 weeks. You don't need to give us any information other than your email so we can send you the information for your login for your site. Throw things together. I've even heard about people, you know, who need a website for just 2 weeks, just trying it out. And the number of people that stick around is huge.
Yep.
So we'll be talking lots more about that. Now,
Week in review?
week in review. And somehow in all that mess, I lost my little, I need to pull that up. What do you got for us?
So, as we mentioned last podcast, we have a new website, which is something that we've been working really hard on, and it's still, you know, we're still working on it, actively working on it. So we've appreciated all the feedback that we've gotten from you guys. But nice things about the website is that it's so much easier to view content, to find content, and we're really happy that you know, we have a way for you guys to kind of go through posts and have a nicer website to look at.
Yes. You were reading that little bit there. The main reason I put it there is in determining, figuring out switching the domain and then doing lots of searches to make sure the domain redirected, I discovered that the easy way to find me and us and all the stuff we do is to basically search for, because there's stuff I haven't covered, but you know, if you're trying to figure out, has he done a review on the D5500 yet? Search D5500 in Google and just throw the word Toby, or the name, my name, Toby, after it. You don't even have to do the photo rec part. And it works very often. So keep that in mind. Don't even have to remember photorec.tv, which is a much shorter, much more memorable, catchy name. Who decided that should be the domain?
I don't know, some like really smart
Woman? Some really smart woman?
person.
Person, okay. So I just wanted to tell you that, yeah, we know it was you. Thanks. Trelina says it's beautiful.
Thanks, Trelina.
Other bits in the week in review. You know, this past week, a new Magic Lantern video went out where I did in more detail how to install Magic Lantern on the T5i was the example camera I used. A couple of discussions that came out of that were interesting. One is that it is now available for the 70D, the Canon 70D. It's in alpha stage. The install is not as easy as it is for the T5i. And very interestingly, there appears to be different firmware revisions out there for the 70D. Now, the number, I think it's still at 1.10 or 1.1 for everybody. But some people run into an issue when they try to install Magic Lantern, and the only thing that the ML guys have figured out is that they have a different revision. And I have the bad revision. Bad just simply because I could not get Magic Lantern to install on it. Corey, however, and I don't know if you're in the chat room, Corey, however, he was able to, and sent me some shots that he, of the screen. You know, it's nice. It's the same as, you know, same power that you get with the T5i, except it's running on the 70D. So that's cool. Another thing that was interesting that came out of that is just how interested folks are in Magic Lantern. I mean, you know, these firmware updates to your camera are really cool because they add all this new functionality and features. And one of the things, I've got the T5i running right here with Magic Lantern, that I wanted to show you all was, actually, I wanted you to hear it, and that's this. I'm going to put the camera, dang it, did it already. Put the camera right there, and I want it to take a picture of us. Oh, there it goes. It took a picture. I didn't touch it. It listened for the clap. It's got a little audio detector in there. Sorry, I just hurt everybody's ears. That's so cool. Just built in. It's just there under the photo menu of Magic Lantern. So if you've got a T5i, T4i, T3i, they've got stable builds for all of this. It really is very easy to install. I feel like I should always cover my butt and say, you know, you do this at your own risk. But I even messed up in an install once on another camera, and it turned out fine. So the actual chances of something happening, I think, are very slim. But of course, they always are possible when you're messing around at the firmware level of this camera. All right? Now, the image critique also went out this week.
That's right.
That was a general one.
Yeah, and I think we offered some good general advice also. One of the nice things about the photo critique, I feel like while we aren't able to critique everybody's images, I do feel like the ones that we are ones that I think have either problems or not problems, but maybe challenges that I feel like I've experienced and I feel like many of you might experience. And so we kind of address how to avoid those sort of things. So it's worthwhile to look at it. Plus, we always kind of find a way to like do some little tweaks in Lightroom. So it kind of you kind of get some tips built into it as a bonus. So go ahead and watch that if you haven't already.
We show you how to add pigeons to your picture.
Or, yeah, right. And you know what? We've gotten people who have sent us their pictures with the changes that we recommended,
yep.
And they were really happy with the result. So you should, if you haven't already, definitely submit some pictures to us. We'd love to take a look.
That's right.
And
right.
yeah.
And so there'll be another general critique out next week, and a reminder that your February assignment due towards the end of February, I think I say the date in the photo critique link, is shadow play. And I have a bit of inspiration for you right here. This is one of the World Press Photo of the Year winners, and it is a drone shot of a bunch of school children on a playground or on the, like, you know, what do you call it, the court. I can't make that bigger.
Such a cool picture.
It is a very cool picture. Oh, look, that doesn't work. Sorry. That's as big as it can be. There's a link in the show notes again to all of the other World Press Photo winners. Just a word of warning, many of them are quite depressing, and some of them are even quite disturbing because these are people, the press are covering events all around the world, in which happens to include lots of things like Ebola this past year, the fighting in Ukraine and Middle East. So, you know, if you're in a good mood, maybe now's not the time to view them. I don't know. But this one is neat because it's an awesome picture taken from a drone, which is cool. Very cool for shadows as well. So both of those things together, I think, add up to a neat picture. Yeah. So you're looking at the other pictures. You're not supposed to be doing that right now. Somebody in the chat had asked if I got my 70D fixed yet. Yes, took 3 sends in to Canon. I've said this before, so I'll be really brief about it. It is fixed. It's, you know, there is still some variance between live view and viewfinder focusing. using the center point, but it's what I consider it acceptable. However, I have seemed to have busted the flash. The pop-up flash now no longer pops up on its own. I have to pull it up, and if I don't pull it up when I push the button, it gives me an error 80. I'm not going to blame Canon at all in this because I was doing goofy stuff, and somebody asked me a question. When you folks ask me questions, I usually go get my camera and then I, try to recreate whatever they're saying, and they're like, it's the flash is making shaky noises, which has been a thing on the Rebels forever. They make little noises when they're closed because they got these little armature things in there that kind of wiggle loosely. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I think I was wiggling it while I tried to open it, and then it didn't work anymore.
Nice.
So I have to send it in. It's out of warranty now. They're going to make me pay for this. So I started to take some screws out of it and say, I could fix this myself.
Yeah.
And then I stopped and I put all the screws back in because I said, not gonna happen. So what do we got to talk about next?
We are going to talk about the week ahead.
The week ahead. Okay, so I tease this a lot. There might be a fair number of you in the chat room, or maybe not, I don't know, who are here only because you want to hear a little bit more about the new arrivals on the review desk. I don't really have a review desk, I just say that. The NX1, which came in, these are very early thoughts, but the review of at least one of these cameras should be out next week and one of the other ones the week following, and the D5500. Now, what I teased, we'll put this to the side for a few minutes because we don't need to talk about that yet. What I teased was, I've got two cameras. I've got two cameras with touch screens. One of them really pushes the envelope of using a touch screen, beautiful user interface, really well done. The other one is just a touch screen. Can you guess which is which? I think you can. Is that a long enough pause?
Am I guessing or?
Yeah, sure, you go ahead and guess.
Oh, which one pushes the envelope? I'm going to just take a guess because I have no idea.
Are you really
The
don't have
Nikon.
Oh no, are you really serious?
I don't know.
Haven't you? This is proof that she is never listening, not just during the podcast, but yesterday in that hour-long car ride where I was gushing. This feels like what it should be. It takes advantage. There are things like you can swipe down to get into a little menu system. And it's got all the touch to focus. The user interface of the menu itself is very clean, very well organized. There's a lot of power in it, but it feels nice. When I think about Nikon, the touchscreen on the 70D, when it came out, I was like, this is nice, I can touch too. But it's still the same menu, it's still the same organization, and really they just allow you to touch. You can pinch the zoom, once a picture's back and things like that. Now, I think some people thought that maybe it was the Nikon because we've heard these rumors of it's a touchscreen and when you put it up to your face, you can do certain things. As far as I can tell, and again, I've really been excited about this, so I've mostly been playing with this, but just a little bit, I think the only thing you can really do when you put it up to your face is pick your focus point. So you literally go like this, and then you put your finger under your face and move it around to select your focus point. That's not bad, but it's just not very exciting. We'll come back to that in a second, but I have a little rundown of things that I love about this NX1 so far. It's nice. The touchscreen, the user interface, the features, some really nice features. Connectivity with a phone in so many different ways and so many different options for that to happen work really, really well. The quality, the image sensor, this is an APS-C size sensor in here, and it looks like a DSLR, but this is a mirrorless camera, no mirror, like a Nikon or the Canons. The APS-C sensor in here, 28 megapixels, haven't done any scientific testing yet, but I've been really impressed with early results. They look great. Those are the good things. The firmware updates, including just one today that I just applied. So 2 firmware updates since I've gotten this camera yesterday. One of them's been out for a while. Neither of those firmware updates, as far as I can tell, added or allowed a person to take focus off the shutter button. You say, well, why would you want to do that? Those of you who are paying careful attention know we love back button focus. That's a button in the back to do the focus, and all that the shutter button does is takes the picture. It's really nice when, like a group shot, you get your focus, and then you take your pictures, and you don't have to worry about the camera saying, "Oh, I need to refocus again," which hesitates half a second,
Yeah.
or maybe screws up. It's really nice. You can use back button focus on here, but it doesn't seem like, please correct me if I'm wrong, that you can remove focus from the shutter button. That is huge. So, it's expensive. With
How
this
much?
with this really nice lens, this is a kit lens that it sells with. It's a 16 to 50 f2 to f2.8. So it's a variable aperture lens, but all
Still
under
pretty fast.
Yeah, it's all under f2.8. 2900 or 2700.
Wow.
Yeah.
For the lens, just the lens?
No,
Oh, the whole thing.
The whole thing,
oh,
yeah.
okay.
So you throw in another lens, a good lens, and you're up another 1,000. And I was just, somebody just reminded me of this on Twitter today. What did I want to do? Oh, I wanted to put it on the higher burst rate. And turn it on. And it's not focused. There we go. Oh my gosh. I just wanted to take a dang old picture. There we go. What? That's fast. 12 frames a second, I think. That's fast. That wasn't actually on my pro list, but it should be. So it's expensive. Lens selection is not huge, but certainly.
Could
good
you
enough.
put a
Good question.
gosh, why is that name escaping me right now? Metabones adapter.
No.
Oh.
The adapter selection is very slim, and all of the ones that I know of, you lose image stabilization, you lose aperture control,
Right.
which you don't with Metabones.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Oh,
You lose focus, you don't lose aperture control. You don't lose. You still have electronic communication
Got
with the
it.
lens. So being able to throw other lenses on is not so easy. Possible, but not so easy. And then a last minus that I have right now is it's Samsung. Not known for very long for making good cameras and lenses, and you never quite know where a company that's starting to establish themselves is just going to decide to go.
that doesn't mean that, you can't trust it, though.
This was a present from my brother. People love the mug, and I wanted to switch it up a little bit from the mason jar. So, sorry. But if I was somebody who enjoyed photography, but also really enjoyed the technology side of things, this is a very, very compelling option. Offers some really nice features that other cameras don't. D5500, you heard me just kind of, poo-poo the exciting touchscreen. I mean, it's nice that it's a touchscreen now. There really isn't anything new about it other than it's a screen you can touch. Very small,
Did Nikon
very
have
light.
any touchscreen cameras, or is this the first?
No, this is their first
Oh, really?
DSLR. First DSLR.
Huh.
Yep. It's got Wi-Fi built in. A grip feels nicer than the previous model. I'll have a side-by-side with a D5300 next week or shortly thereafter. It's nice.
But you said you think the 5300 is still a great value.
That's my first summary from playing with this camera for a little while. It doesn't offer better image quality. It's the same sensor, same internals. So it's really the touch screen that they've added and the slight redesign to the body makes me feel like the 5300 is a great value. That's a great sensor in there, and that price has come down a lot.
Cool.
Yes.
I saw somebody ask in the comments if you think that the 70D is going to go down in price at all.
It has, it's selling now body only. Has it that much? Not really. I think we will start to see it slowly drop. Again, I don't expect any serious drop anytime soon. It's a very common question. Maybe they're asking because the T6S, offers a lot of the power of the 70 Rebel-like body. So when that is out and selling for a little while, the 70D might come down a little bit more. But again, you just don't see these drastic drops. And on the used market, sometimes you do for people who are about to upgrade because they're getting rid of that body and going to the next one. And nobody who is intelligent is going to be selling their 70D on the used market and picking up T6Ss. So we're going to continue to see a slow, gradual decrease in price, but nothing exciting anytime soon. This is my prediction.
Okay.
my Faircast.
So that's it for week ahead.
Okay.
Let's move into news now.
Yes.
So Google and Mattel are partnered up to release this photosphere product.
Yeah.
Which is like what do you call those things?
A ViewMaster.
The ViewMaster, but digital.
That's right.
So it's like you can put your phone in it.
You put your phone in it. That's right. You put your phone in it, and then you point it at these little discs that take you on these virtual tours. You pick this little point, you say click it, and then all of a sudden you're looking. Now they're showing you a cartoony style view, but full screen? I don't want to go full screen. Also, I don't know if there's sound. Fine, I'll go full screen. But it's going to be real life. So, that's kind of cool. And he's gone to Alcatraz now. And you can make your own photospheres that you then upload. And so I thought that was neat as well. So let's stop playing that. And this is similar to the Google Cardboard experiment that they gave away at Google I/O last year, which allows you to stick your phone basically in front of your face. It's like a really cheap way to do the Oculus thing or something like that. So I thought it was cool because I didn't realize that you were allowed to upload your own photospheres to Google Maps and have them be public. I didn't know that was a thing, but you can do that. I think you have to have an Android phone. Ha ha ha, you iOS people. The one benefit
we're really
we have.
missing out.
Well, you are, and then you can do these photospheres. You can actually use your own camera. I thought this was interesting too. You can use your own camera, and then upload images so that it gets this metadata and knows how to. I don't know how that works, and knows how to put them together in a photosphere, or adds the metadata that will you then pass to this photosphere, and it says, okay, I know what to do with these. So I thought that was interesting, and I just wanted to talk about it briefly. So, I think.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you mentioned this,
Oops.
but it says that quality isn't that great.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
I haven't
so
looked.
that's kind of a bummer.
Right. The Verge, we got a link to the Verge article about this, and they have a lot more pictures of it. Well, maybe we'll come back and show some of these pictures. It's got, now, I might be dating myself a little bit here, but my dad had one of these as a kid, and then it was around the house when I was a kid, and I loved it.
I had a ViewMaster.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, this is an updated version of it. It's kind of exciting from that standpoint. It looks a little cheesy, but, it's supposed to be kind of a kid's toy, or is it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of unclear to me. It's by Mattel, so
Right.
I would think so, but...
Right. But we don't know.
Cool. So DP Review has up close and personal with Ricoh's full frame Pentax mockup. So Ricoh has a camera that they've released.
Well, they bought Pentax. They now own Pentax.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And a lot for the Pentax folks out there who were excited by the full frame announcement, because here's what Pentax shooters get: very nice DSLRs for the money. You get these weather resist. Most of the series, the Rebel kind of like line, or the D5500, 5300 like line on the Pentax side. Almost all of them are weather resistant. Really nice sensors. They're right up there at the top, if not at the top of crop sensors. Well, Samsung's now challenging that. And just a lot of nice feature sets. Remember, we made fun of the one with the blinky lights on the grip. Mm-hmm. But they just announced the KS2, no blinky lights, and a serious camera that's very small. But Pentax folks have not had a full frame. So, when a professional is looking, or somebody is looking to, they want to be really serious about photography, and they're jumping in, they, oftentimes look down the line, and I hear this all the time in questions. I'm going to get a T5i now, or I'm going to get a D7100 now, but then I'm going to get a full frame in a couple years. Well, Pentax didn't have any full frames, so there was very little people going in saying, oh, in a couple years I'm going to, oh, wait, what? And now they're going to have one. And
Right.
so Pentax people are excited.
Because they can keep their lenses and...
That's right.
It's not mirrorless, is it?
No, it is
Okay.
a DSLR. It's going to be a medium format. They do have medium format.
Is there a price?
There is no price yet, and I don't know if you can see this close, Christina. All we're getting so far is a plastic model. It doesn't even have the LCD screen on the back or the top. It really is a plastic model. It looks like the screen is going to be articulating, but it's got a real lens on there. They managed to get the lens mount right, but otherwise, not much going on there. So also just point to this, they had a poll running the other day and I filled it out and I'm already logged in here. So would you consider buying the EOS M3? Look at this poor thing. I live outside the US, which is the only place it's going to be sold outside the US, and I have no interest in buying that. That's the clear winner. And then the other is don't care, what's the EOS M3? I live in the US. I mean, I live outside the US and I'm considering buying it is 8%. I live in the US and I would buy it if I could is 11%. And those people, I don't think they really would buy it. So the poor EOS M3.
Yeah. Well, so why would somebody like buy a Pentax entry-level camera versus Canon or Nikon? Like,
Well,
why would somebody go with a Pentax?
Right. It's a great question. And the answer is the value for your money is very good.
So they're a little bit less expensive?
They're a little bit less expensive, or they're about the same price as the Rebels oftentimes, but they're weather resistant, weather sealed.
Okay.
They have really good sensors in them, and they have a nice feature set.
Okay.
The downside, and this is, I mean, I don't get asked a lot about Pentax, but just often enough that I made a little autoresponder, that I can type in and say, I love the cameras, they basically everything I just said, but you're going to buy into this really small ecosystem. There's a lot of extra stuff that you like start to add as a photographer that you're going to look around and be frustrated that maybe this camera or this accessory manufacturer doesn't make one for Pentax, this port, or it's going to be a little bit harder to find a third-party flash if you want that. If you don't care about those things, it doesn't matter. And the fact that they're going to go full frame, I think, is great, and or have an option for full frame, and it's going to continue to do well, hopefully. Their market is just small. That's all.
Cool.
Their market's small.
Well, next on news is Sigma's announced a new 24 millimeter 1.4 Art Series lens, and Deep Review has a hands-on.
Yeah, I don't seem to
preview
have.
of
I don't
it.
seem to have that post up. So we'll just hold up our Sigma 50. Now, I titled this podcast "Hard Sell." Christina. According to Christina, I don't come up with good podcast titles. They're not catchy enough. I welcome her to come up with better ones. It is hard to come up with a good title before the show, but hard sell is in reference to the Sigma 24.
Well, can I say something?
Sure.
You complain about like titles that are misleading because the content doesn't actually reflect anything that was mentioned in the title, but they're catchy. So I'm just saying, like, just make something catchier. And you're better at it than I am, so that's why I probably shouldn't.
Cooper wants to know what Art Series means. So forever Sigma's been making lenses. Some lenses decent, some lenses good, some lenses okay. Then they came along and said, you know what, we're going to create the signature line of lenses that we're going to call our Art Series. These are going to be top of the line, the Porsches, the Ferraris.
Like the L version of the Canon,
that's
or
right.
what is the Nikon equivalent of it?
What is the Nikon equivalent of an
They
L
have-
lens?
They have like a really, I don't know, very confusing naming system.
Nikon?
Yeah, for their lenses. I can never tell which one is the like pro level. Can you guys tell us in the comments? What
don't
do they
remember.
call their pro level lenses, and then like their mid level, and then their anyway.
Let's edit this part out and then mount voiceover. I'm saying the correct answer. All right, but back to the Sigma, which I do know about. They came out with a 35, and we were excited because Canon's 35 f1.4 is an ancient lens.
Yeah.
And not very exciting.
And I was looking at pictures that I've taken with that lens because I have it, actually, still do. And the difference is really amazing. I mean, we don't work for Sigma. Sigma doesn't pay us. I just like...
That's who I was trying to get a hold of on LinkedIn, though. Trying to get a hold of somebody at Sigma.
I'm in love with these lenses. The 50 and the 35 are so sharp just from the center to the edges. It's just It's really amazing.
And you sold your Canon 50-1.2 to pick up the Sigma 50-1.4 because you were okay with sacrificing that bit of light and that bit of aperture. Now, somebody on my review of these lenses said, you're missing the point. You get the Canon to get this nice creamy look, and the Sigma doesn't have that. I disagree.
I can sort of see what they're saying. Like I follow this film photographers group, and they shoot hybrid. They shoot both film and digital, and a lot of them really like the 50-1.2 because it's not as sharp. But I just find that it's really slow to focus, and I miss a lot of shots with it. So I don't love it. I think the Sigma is a solid lens.
The Adobe line. Yes, and so I said the 35. We were excited because Canon's 35 is pretty stinky. The 50 came out. I got the review unit, and we put it up against our 50, and we were like, wow, it blows it away. Talked to our guy, our friend who works at a lens rental place, and said, how are the other Canon 50s? Are they as bad as this? And he's like, yeah, they're all pretty bad like that, and Sigma's great. Yeah. And so that was an easy decision. The 24, I think, is going to be a little bit harder for Sigma to sell, and here's why. Canon's 24 is really sweet. Nikon's got a really nice 24. Rokinon offers a really nice 24. There are a lot of good 24s out there that it's going up against. Now, I will say this, they have priced it sweetly. $850, that is cheaper than I thought. Canon's 24 is $1650. Nikon's is, I can't remember, 14. It's 14, 13, maybe 12. Maybe as low as 12, but I don't think so. It's a lot of money. And this is going to be a lot cheaper, and I expect that it's going to be as sharp, possibly sharper. It's built similar to this. It is a 77 millimeter as well. These lenses are built fantastically. They aren't weather sealed. So that's one downside that the Canon lenses offer over top. So
not the 50 or the 85.
Those aren't weather sealed?
I don't think the 85. I'm pretty sure the 85 isn't. I am certain that the 50 isn't.
I thought the 85 has a rubber ring around the back.
That doesn't mean weather sealing, though.
Well, it's a little bit more sealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, checking your phone during the podcast. Now, does this lead into the other discussion? So I just think it's going to be hard to sell. Now, somebody asked on, when I started talking about this, well, let's pretend this little pancake is the 24. It's the 40, the 24 is over there. Why would somebody, get a 24-1.4 for $850 over the 24-8 for $149.
24 to 8?
24 f2.8.
Oh.
Remember the pancake?
Yeah.
So same focal length, f2.8, f1.4. Why $850? $140.
Well, a couple of reasons.
Tell us, because I'm
Lots of them,
talking too
actually.
much.
So, the price difference is for a reason. They use much nicer glass, so the optics in a lens like this are going to be higher end than in a lens like the pancake. There's going to be a lot more glass, and a lot of what that means, what that means a lot of the times, is that you're going to get a lot less distortion, a lot less vignetting around the edges. And your picture is probably going to be a little bit sharper because there's probably more coatings, and just, the quantity of glass is going to make a difference. So I'm not sure if the Sigmas are any faster, or if that lens is going to be any faster focusing than the...
Faster focusing, not faster aperture.
Right.
That. Yeah.
No, faster focusing.
Yeah.
But that could be another improvement over it. All in all... And when you feel this lens, it's very well built. It's good materials. Whereas when you hold a pancake, it's a nice lens if you're on a budget, but you feel it, and it's plasticky, and you don't have a lot of glass in there. So it's a great budget lens. But if you can, spend the money on a nicer lens, then I would definitely do that.
Right. Well, I think it depends on what you're doing, and Trevor just made a great point in the comments. If you value portability, that f2.8 lens is fantastic.
That's
I mean,
true.
it's tiny.
Portability,
It
right.
depends, if you're a parent and you just want to make sure you got a decent camera with you and you're going out for the evening, throwing a pancake on like the 40 or the 24, it's hard to beat that.
Yeah.
It makes your camera a whole lot more portable. I mean, look at the difference. And this
Yeah.
weighs as much. The 24 is probably going to weigh about the
true.
same as the 50, maybe a little less. It's a little more compact.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
And I don't want to badmouth the 24 f2.8 because it's sharp at f2.8.
Sure.
But this will be sharper. And the difference in light gathering abilities from f2.8 to f1.4 is significant.
Can you use the 24 pancake on a full frame sensor?
No, you cannot. That's a good point. Yep.
That's another difference.
Good.
So.
I forget about that. Yes, the Sigma will be full frame compatible. And Audrey, I'm sorry, I missed it, says the Nikon 24 is 1900. So maybe I should title this show Not Such a Hard Sell, because I mean it's coming in at half the price of these other ones. But what we still hear from people, there is still a stigma that some people hold on to around third-party lenses. I didn't say stigma around Sigma because that's too much. But we heard that from, again, our friend at the lens rental place said that they have the Sigma 50s in, but they don't rent as many of them as we would think because people rent the Canon.
Really?
Yeah.
So they just rent more of the Canon. It's not that more people have the 50 and they don't need to rent that.
I guess they figure if they're going to rent the most expensive, even if it's not necessarily the best. And I mean, I think they're selling fairly well, but take the case in point of the 24 to 105 from Sigma that I took to Italy, reviewed, loved, blows away the Canon 24 to 105 in sharpness. They have discontinued that because, well, they didn't say why, but the thought is they just couldn't compete against these Canons. The used market on the Canon 24 to 105 is flooded, both with people buying the kit and then selling off the 24 to 105, or people just having them for a while because it was a kit lens and upgrading. It's not a great lens, but it's a decent do-it-all lens, especially for video. And so, there's an example of making a superior lens, price-wise, was a little bit cheaper than the new version, but definitely more expensive than the used version, and they couldn't compete. Although we don't know for sure that was it.
There's an interesting related conversation going on in the chat where a couple of people, including Roger and Trevor and Cooper and Scozio, you're all talking about how much of a difference can you really tell between a lens like the Pancake versus the Sigma?
That's a good question.
Yes, agreed. Most of the time, most people won't be able to tell the difference, especially after you do some post-processing. I mean, you really have to do some serious pixel peeping. One of the things that I really love about your reviews, and I think some of you might relate, is that you don't go into the technical aspects of it.
Sometimes. Right, well...
Not like
this
looking
ties,
at charts and looking at DxO mark scores.
Can we put a pause on this? Because this is basically a small segment in my discussion piece.
Well, why not talk about it now?
Oh, okay.
Let's just discuss it now.
Okay. Well, this is the thing, and I meant to talk about this last week because I had a really funny Twitter conversation with somebody, and I put up that picture of me with 2 snow shovels. And somebody made the joke about, you're going to start reviewing snow shovels. And I said, oh yeah, I like the wide ones when it's fluffy and get the metal ones when it starts to get icy and heavy. And then he said, well, let me check the DX Snow mark scores on that. And that just put this image into my head that I want to share with you all for a moment. Now, a quick disclaimer is, when you're about to plunk down a lot of money on any camera you buy, probably, you want to make sure you're getting your money's worth. But I feel like there's this trend right now, and I don't want to pick on any other camera reviewers because it certainly has a place, but when we start getting heavily into DxO mark scores and pixel pitch, I don't think we're doing most people a service. We're doing them a disservice, because here's the image I had in my head about the snow shovel. We got somebody checking the DX Snow mark scores. Oh my gosh, that one's just got a 30, that one's got a 33. And while they're doing that, the snow is piling up around them until they're buried. And the truth is, if they just bought any one of those damn shovels, they could just start shoveling the snow away. But instead, they're obsessing. And then even after they get their camera, I hear from people all the time that watch my reviews of a camera after they bought it. Don't do that. Just get outside and start taking pictures with it. I guarantee 1000% you will make better pictures. I'm spitting because I'm getting fired up. If you just get outside and start taking pictures.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we talk about the difference between these two particular lenses, and I think for me, because I'm making money off of photography and I'm selling a product, for me it's really important to have the highest quality that I can possibly deliver to my clients. Also, I have a full frame camera, so I couldn't buy the 24 millimeter pancake. But
those are very important points, and I don't want to feel like I'm picking on anybody.
And I'm not saying that if you're interested in quality, that the Sigma is the way to go. Because if portability, if you find that you're going to be more likely to bring the 24 millimeter pancake with you than the Sigma 24 millimeter, then you should get the pancake, because the camera that you're going to use is the one that you have with you. So that, and that's what you're going to make pictures with. So it seems like while I do, I care about image quality to a certain extent, there are lots of other factors that you should take into consideration based on how you use cameras. So I think that's a really important point to make. Also, yes, I mean, so many times you cannot tell the difference between, unless you're like, if you're looking at picture after picture after picture, and then you get used to like the patterns of like the kind of images that you make, but they're so subtle. So, I mean, you would have to really look closely at each picture and peep to an extent that, it's not worth it. You should be out there making pictures, not worrying about what these, how much better one lens is than the other.
And well, you messed up my order now, because there was a question I had this week. We'll go back to it though. But back to the 24 versus the 24, because I think this is a great example. And there are professionals that need to say, okay, if I get this camera, I'm going to be able to produce this kind of image. You might be in a situation where you need f1.4 or f1.8 to get the picture of the bride, doing whatever she's doing without using a harsh flash or something like that. Whereas the f2.8 is just not going to be able to perform for you in that circumstances. So, but that is a feature set, not a quality set, So.
Right. And the point is that even if you do want the Sigma, not because you're a professional photographer, but because you just want to have the 1.4, that's totally fine. It's just, you should do what feels comfortable for you. My rule of thumb would be, if you take pictures for your hobby, I would definitely pick the lens and the camera and the gear with the feature set that is going to make you more likely to go out there and shoot. If that means that you buy something a little bit more affordable, then by all means, or if you want to splurge, that's fine too. But just you do you.
Just for information, we're filming this with a GH4, but the lens we're using is an older, not greatly reviewed Sigma Zoom 18-50 f2.8. It's decent, but it's like 8 or 9 years old now, but it gave us the focal length we wanted on the adapter and for the position of the thing, and I actually didn't have anything else to use. And can you see anything bad? No, it's fine.
Yeah.
And
I can see that it's crooked because you didn't set it up quite right, but.
Well, you, my dear, weren't here to do that for us. What I'm seeing is, if you look carefully back there, let's point this out and no one will be able to unsee it, is we are seeing the distortion from that lens at 18. So I really think I would like to go back to the further away, more narrow shot.
I disagree. Oh. I like that up close can reach into the camera.
All right. I can make it 3D like Boba Fett's coming for all of you. Now,
moving on.
I actually would, when I get a little tipsy, I don't talk about this stuff too much.
Yeah, you shouldn't. It's my topic. Okay.
So
next news item. Somebody crashed a drone into the White House.
yeah, this was actually, again, this is something we meant to cover last week, or I had put it in there because it happened back in January, end of January. I love this story. A government employee got a little tipsy, speaking of tipsy, decided he was going to fly his DJI Phantom around the White House at 3 a.m. and then he crashed it. Now, what the interesting stuff that has come out of this is, well, one, Secret Service was like, what? We can't deal with this. Really, you guys hadn't, I mean, these things are flying everywhere. One of you guys wasn't like, whoa, we should think about how we would deal with one of these. You get a net or something? But that aside, what I thought was really interesting is they have, of course, no-fly zones in places like the White House. You can't just take a little airplane and go flying over the White House, not without getting a really scary escort from planes with big missiles on them. And in other places like nuclear power plants and military bases and facilities and things like that. And what they can do, and what they've asked DJI to do, is to say, hey, you know, these drones have GPSs in them. They know where they are at all times, because when you, the technology in these little things is really awesome. I would like one. The more I watch David fly his around, the more I use my slider, the more I want one, but it's just not in the budget right now. But they know where they are at all times, and so you can simply say, if a dude is flying it this way and it gets to the no-fly zone, it's just going to refuse to fly in there. It's not going to go in there. And DJI can update the firmware. Now, I don't think it can force the people to update the firmware. Basically, you just say, here's a new firmware. You should update it. And maybe they'll throw like something exciting in, increase battery life by 1 minute. But the other thing is, it will no longer work in these no-fly zones. I just thought this was interesting, an interesting way to approach this. And there have now sprung up a website where you can submit your property as a no-fly zone for drones. And some drone manufacturers have signed on and say, we'll include this. DJI is not one of them, which I think makes it a little silly, because they are I mean, you know, how many drones do you see not made by DJI flying around? Very, very, very few by your regular people. So I just thought it was interesting, and it made me think a little bit about if we get into a scary kind of police state in the future, which I don't necessarily think we will, but many times our cameras have GPSs in them, and in the future, will they refuse to take a picture of an area that we're not supposed to or not allowed to take pictures of? I don't know. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
I guess it comes down to, like, how much of a danger is it to take a picture of something that you're not supposed to take a picture of versus, like, flying a drone into it and injuring somebody.
That's true.
So.
But in my mind, I was picturing this police state where it's no pictures allowed here, and your camera just refuses.
That seems a little bit.
Refuses to work. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you talk about the Mashable no-fly? Yeah, you did.
That's what I just talked about. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are gonna go and talk about our discussion. That was it for news.
Yeah. Well, the discussion was, I think we're going to put off the photo retouching again.
Okay.
Because we're at 52 and we want to do some reader questions.
Yep.
Matthew says, isn't there a GoPro drone coming out soon? There's been rumors that they're working on their own version. You know, the newest DJI, the DJI Inspire, looks like a sweet, sweet piece of technology. No, the DJI Phantom is great as well, too. So we did the DX Snowmark scores. Oh, so photo retouching, you want to talk about that next week. We will make sure we have time.
Okay.
But, you know, it did come up in the critique as well. Corey was submitting an image and said, you know, how much photoshopping do you think guys think is too much? And
it depends.
Well, it does depend.
What is the subject matter?
Like, okay, well, let me give you some examples. Images submitted to a critique for us, and they've removed 2 light poles that were in the scene.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not like, you know, the Associated Press or anything.
That's right. We're not journalists. You're not submitting to journalism. So I think a fair amount of photoshopping is allowed. Now, you could certainly overdo it and make the picture crappy, but if you Photoshop and you can't tell that you Photoshopped to remove something, or maybe the tree you photographed is missing a few leaves and you added a few, or like in Zoe's example, we added a pigeon on the other side to balance. In Lightroom, that took 2 clicks to add a pigeon perfectly. would have been a little better in Photoshop so you could tilt them. But go watch that critique. It was good. And yeah, so for future critiques, as long as you haven't made your picture look crummy.
I would say we criticize, so the one things that we are not fans of, and again, this is a totally personal choice. You know, if you like a certain aesthetic, you keep doing it. If it makes you happy, that's totally fine. Some things we, you know, are going to be a little bit critical of are probably like really heavy HDR. You know, where you have like ghosting around the edges and it's just overdone. Too much saturation, you know, where it looks obvious. Unless it's done purpose, you know, with a specific like artistic
Yeah, well, we had the city one,
it.
which, you know, they had carefully boosted specific colors, and it looked good.
Right. So like too much saturation, too much HDR, and also like pictures that haven't been post-processed at all. I mean, I think that photos are meant for you to be taken into post-processing software so that they can look their absolute best according to your standards and your taste. I mean, you know, these cameras, when you take the pictures, they're pretty raw looking right out of camera. So
unless you're shooting JPEG and you've cranked up all of the settings in camera.
Right, unless you've done that. But yeah, so many times we see pictures that, you know, and you, up until recently.
You keep saying this.
Have I said it?
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm going to say it one more time.
I'm sure it won't be the last.
You know, you didn't retouch your pictures at all, so you'd have these like really cool shots of like the stars and, you know, the Big Dipper and constellations.
Pura vida, baby. Pura vida.
Nobody knows what that means.
Somebody out there knows what that means.
And
I don't remember.
but they don't know like how you mean it.
I'm just trying to come up with something.
Retouch the pictures, and you know, once we did a little bit in Lightroom, it just like made the picture pop so much. So I definitely encourage you to learn how to use either Photoshop or Lightroom or some other editing software. And really work on your pictures.
Yep. I had a question this week that was the first time I think I've had. And let me ask you this question, Christina.
Yep.
Person said they have a DSLR, didn't really specify what lens or lenses they have right now, but they wanted to know, they want to be a serious, I think they used the word professional photographer, that's what they're working towards. Should they spend their limited budget on post-processing software, Photoshop, Lightroom, currently using GIMP, or should they buy a new lens?
And they want to be a professional?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's such a broad question.
Well, that's the kind of questions I get. Welcome to my world.
How much money do you have?
Well, okay. Well, I mean, what would you say? I gave you as much as...
Could conceivably get both things. If you were thinking you're going to spend like money on a really expensive lens, you could probably still budget some to have left over. I mean, you can buy Lightroom and Photoshop for pretty cheap. Like, you know, $9.99 a month.
I know.
So, I don't know. I think in the long run, you'll probably be better off learning how to use. But if you have something free like GIMP and you're really good at using that, I would just stick with that. I mean, if you're going to be editing lots of photos, I know about your workflow, it's probably going to take you a really long time to edit those pictures if you're using GIMP or even Photoshop. I know people that edit all of their pictures from weddings in Photoshop. They open each and every one and edit them in Photoshop. I don't know how they do that. That seems incredibly time consuming. So, yeah, I don't know. A lot of people are they're promoting Pirate Bay on the chat. We do not condone that.
With it being $9.99 a month.
It's kind of a
That really
no-brainer.
feels kind of affordable. And I mean, I know it's not cheap and everybody's money situation is different, but they've given you an option that works really well for photographers. It's the two programs you need. But I did actually, Week in Review, mention that Mac only Affinity Beta right now, which is a kind of combination of Photoshop and Lightroom. Doesn't give you the organization tools of Lightroom, but all of the power, and it's currently completely free, and that's completely legal, and when it does sell, it's gonna sell for $50. 2 years of free updates. So that's something as well. And there are other options. This woman mentioned that she's using GIMP. What did you?
I think sometimes we're
Okay,
watching
sorry.
the live feed that
That
you
was
guys
rude.
are watching, and sometimes it just jumps to a
I
previous
thought you
part
guys
of
were
it.
seeing something from long ago, and I was worried. So you know, I said I think you should go ahead and get Photoshop and Lightroom. These are industry standard programs, and there's just so much support and help out there that you get into these, you learn what you need to quickly and efficiently work with post-processing your images. I think you can make an argument for a lens, but I'm not sold that my answer is the right answer, but I feel
they're
pretty...
just such different things that I feel like you shouldn't just be getting one or the other. You should probably be getting both. Like maybe you can buy a slightly less expensive lens that you can upgrade later on, and buy Photoshop and Lightroom. If you feel like you need a lens, an extra lens that's gonna give you a specific look, or it's really gonna help you get better pictures in lower light or what have you, maybe that's something you want to consider. But I feel like they're different things. They can't really substitute one for the other, and at the price that Lightroom and Photoshop are at right now, I just don't see that, being...
Okay.
Anyway.
All right, so shared that question with you, and we got Christina's non-answer. You just kind of skirted it.
I'm really happy. I'm really good at non-answers.
You are good at that. One I remembered, we had a question to you all last week. So before we get to the rest of the reader questions, we asked what would be your top priority in a camera. Low light image quality or high ISO image quality, good dynamic range, or more megapixels, because we were really talking about the 5DS, 5DR a bunch last week. And just for updates on that, I haven't heard anything greatly different. I mean, I think these cameras are going to produce nice images, but it does feel like Canon just went for the megapixels, that it's not going to be this amazing, camera that just flies off the shelf. I think it's pretty niche, however, niche or whatever, and I think a lot of the people that really wanted big megapixels have already started looking elsewhere and started buying elsewhere. So it'll be interesting to see. And so I'll be saying more about that. I don't know if I'm going to do a dedicated video about the 5DS and 5DR. There's a lot of good people have already talked about it. Not until it comes out, at least. Okay, now, so the answers to those questions last week, most of you said low light, high ISO, good quality. That was first. Then a couple dynamic ranges, and then I think 1 megapixel in there. So not a whole lot. Mm-hmm. I don't have a question for you yet this week. So can you come up with one in the chat room, please? While I read to you all the most confusing question I've ever gotten. I'm hearing some noise on the Nikkor 8 to 55 millimeter lens during autofocus of still photos with my new Nikon D5300. So let me recap that sentence for you. I'm hearing some noise during autofocus. Yeah, sure, makes sense. I see a lot written about noise during video, but is some noise, particularly with low light, high ISO settings, normal?
What kind of noise?
Well, in the first sentence, you're talking about hearing some noise, and then in the second sentence, you're talking about noise during video. Now, I know. Now, I know it's confusing, folks. I know. And I'm not putting this person down, but this just was one of the most confusing questions I've ever gotten. So, I
understand what's happening here.
Yeah, they're mixing up what you hear and what you see. And confusing. Also because they're mixing the stills and the video,
right.
I don't quite know what they're getting at. I answered the best I could, and I haven't heard back.
My guess is they're hearing noise, the noise of the lens focusing.
Yeah.
And they think that that's a bad thing.
Yeah. But then they have touched on the point of, particularly with low light, high ISO settings. So are they thinking that all of it is talking about noise amount?
Well, I think that they're not understanding that noise by noise we mean the speckly. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I did. All right. I wrote and I said there's 2 types of noise. We're talking about the ones you hear and the ones you see. I explained it and didn't hear back. We so rarely hear back from many people.
People are
Okay.
so...
Cooper asked real quick, and I didn't see. Cooper's asked another question too. 2016. Real quick, and I didn't know if people answered or not because I was looking away for a while. Differences between the T4i and the T5i. The T5i dial goes all the way around, and the T5i was sold with an 18 to 55 STM. The T4i was not. It was sold with a non-STM lens, unless you bought the 18 to 135, and that's really it, if I remember correctly. Rumors that they did the T5i to because they had the rubber grip problem. I don't know if that's true. I think it was mostly to get the old kit 18 to 55 out, because I heard from a lot of people that bought the T4i with the 18 to 55 and then couldn't get the silent focus that was advertised that this camera would provide. And that was just boneheaded of Canon. Maybe they didn't have the 18 to 55 ready when the T4i was going out. I don't know. So really, if you don't care about that, or if you found a way to get an 18 to 55 for a T4i, T4i is fine. And again, I've said this before, but I'll say it again. You know, a discontinued camera is not a bad camera. Every car model is discontinued every year. You still can get it repaired. You still, especially with something like Canon, there's still a bajillion lenses. And it doesn't matter if your model camera has been discontinued. Find a cheap one. Find a cheap one. I skipped that question. There was a question about 70D versus D7100, and they'd listed out all these features they like. Sit down and make a pro-con list. Come up with whichever features mean the most to you. Okay. Matthew, or how do you say that?
Matthew, I think.
Really?
I'm not sure.
With all that extra IEU?
Apologies.
Mr. Kramers has some thoughts, or wants our thoughts on the combo of the Sigma 35. That's an Art Series lens for crop sensors. Oh, I was going to talk about the new zoom too. The 50 millimeter prime. I don't know which one. Which one? F1.8, F1.4.
He's in the chat, so maybe you can clarify.
And the Tamron 70 to 200. So I think we're being asked for this because one, we've got three lenses here covering a huge range. Basically, your range that you would need in 99% of your situations, unless you're really trying to shoot macro. I don't see any way to get a macro in there, or a really longer wildlife lens or something like that. So I think it's a nice combination. The Sigma 18 to 35 is the best non-prime lens you can put on a crop sensor. There are drawbacks to it. It's heavy, it's expensive, it's a fairly limited range. It's basically, like a 2x zoom, 18 to 35. That's limiting. But as I've said in my original review of that, it's like carrying around a bag of primes. It's like carrying around an 18 f1.8, a 20 f1.8, a 24 f1.8, a 30 f1.8, a 35 f1.8.
Right.
Because it's that sharp, basically, and, it's good. As long as you don't mind switching lenses, too often, I think it's fine. The 50 is nice, a little bit more focal lengthy. I'm going to, of course, assume this is crop sensor since you're asking about the Sigma 18 to 35. And the Tamron 70 to 200, it's a good lens. It doesn't have quite that punch, color, and contrast that the Canon offers. Even the Canon F4, those Canon 70 to 200s, all of them are spectacular. But the Tamron is a really good value because you get f2.8 and you get VC. Also as well, it's image stabilized for the price of the 70 to 200 f4 IS, basically, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's a nice combination, and I don't think you're going to be missing anything there. You're not going to be missing 35 to 50 really, and you're not going to really be missing 50 to 70. You're just going to be changing lenses a little bit more often if you're trying to cover things often.
Yep.
Yep. Who said it's for? Yeah, for D7100. Nice. The Sigma 18 to 35 on a D7100 is, I don't know if you've already got this or you're thinking about it, it's a really nice combination. The D7100 sensor is very good. I've been asked about the D7200 because, I talked up rumors we're going to hear. Nikon rumor guy thought we're going to hear, and not a peep. Those Nikon announcements came and went. They were the D810A, which is the astrophotography DSLR. And they had at least one other, well, they had a bunch of Coolpix stuff. So nothing. And maybe we'll hear in a couple weeks, but it'd be weird for them to announce a couple weeks after the CP Plus show. So,
That's annoying.
yeah, well, just click that closed. We're looking at the other questions.
On Facebook.
Sate says Olympus OMD EM5 Mark II, which we talked about last week, mentioning it's got that pixel shifting technology to make a 40 megapixel image from a 16 megapixel sensor. They're claiming the best image stabilization of any camera. I think it's going to be very good. Typically, in-body image stabilization is not as good as lens stabilization in the past. That has been true. Oh, that's another thing the Pentax offer. Most of those Pentax have in-body stabilization,
Oh, that's
which
nice.
is a nice feature. You throw on an old lens, and if you're doing video.
Would you say that then that makes the lenses a little bit cheaper because they don't have to build in?
Well, if you remember, last week we talked about this. Pentax announced those 2 new lenses that are really expensive, and I was a little surprised that they're basically more expensive than their Canon counterparts. I expected them to be a little cheaper because they don't have image stabilization in it, and it relies on the body.
Nick's Picks asks, what's the better choice for a family shooter? So a broad range of conditions, from indoor low light stuff to birthdays to dance to outdoor sports, etc. He likes to get out there and shoot everything and wants to put his images up on canvas or prints or frame them. His choices are, he's looking to get into full frame, and his choices are the Canon 16 new or the Canon 5D Mark II used. I'd go with the 16 new.
The only thing that makes me nervous is you said outdoor sports. The 6D is not a champ at focusing
Neither
and
is the
burst
5D
rate.
Mark II.
That's true.
They're
That's
about
true.
equal.
What kind of outdoor sports? Your kids doing something a little bit slower? What's a slower outdoor sport?
I mean, I would get the 7D if you're going to be doing a lot of sports. I would consider that over the 6, because you're still going to get great image quality,
right.
but and you're going to get that crop sensor. You're going to be a little bit closer.
Yep, that's true. But indoor low light, not as good. But you know what? Get yourself a $100 third-party external flash. Turn it around backwards, bounce it off the ceiling, boom. Or prime lens. So if you really set on full frame, I would probably go with the 60.
Yep.
The 60 is a little bit more of a capable focuser than a 5D Mark II, which is what you said. Yeah. Crystal asked us how we feel about the original version of the 70-200 f2.8 IS. And also a good lens. There is a noticeable improvement in the Mark II, but the original is still a good lens as well. Mostly in sharpness. Colors and contrast are still there in the original.
Auntie Evan wants us to explain how to submit photos for photo critique. Great question. What is the link?
Go to, if you go, you got a couple different ways to get to it.
What's the easiest?
I think the easiest is to go to my YouTube channel and just go back a couple days to the photo critique. And under the last photo critique, under the last couple of photo critiques, is a link to the post. It's on photorec.tv, photorec.tv/ it's not its own page, it's just the post that we keep going to, and that loads slower. And I think it's fallen off the first page. Yeah.
Don't you have a link
but you
on
can,
the menu?
Not to the critique, no.
Oh, I thought you did. Never mind.
So go to the last YouTube video that was a critique, a link underneath that, or go to photorec.tv and hit that little magnifying glass and just start to type crit, because I truthfully can never remember if it goes Q. Actually, I do know.
You suck at spelling is what you're trying to say.
I suck at spelling.
Should you do a screen share of your thing to show people?
Oh, well, sure. I'll do a screen share of my thing to show people. So on the website, you click the little magnifying glass, and you saw I just had already typed it in there. So you just start to type CRIT. I typed that wrong. And there it is, critique, schedule, and submission. Or if you could go back to that one right there as well. And you can submit. And there's just drag and drop for the February submission. And there is a link for the February assignment. So there's the 2 general and the other one there as well. So that's all right there.
I've also just added it to the show notes. So if you're still watching, just look at the show notes. The link will be right there, right at the top, second link that you see.
Yeah. Did anybody come up with a good question of the week?
I have not seen one.
Oh, Auntie Evan wants to know how exactly from a Lightroom file to submit. Export.
Oh.
You can export as a JPEG or you can export as original. So go File, go to Export. And I do have a Lightroom video. Hey, let's go back to the website for a second and show you something that is useful for you all. On the website, under the Videos drop-down, is Lightroom, oh bugger, is the Lightroom category. And you can go into the Lightroom category and you can scroll down and there is the import, edit, and sharing. Sharing is another way to say export. I think that's the only one. And you watch that, and it's not very long, and it will show you how to export and give you some options and recommendations for exporting video. No, what am I saying? Pictures from Lightroom. Then you'll take that file and submit it. If you can't figure out how that is on your own computer, and you better be able to figure that out. Yep.
Alrighty. Is that it for today?
Zoe's going skiing tomorrow. Zoe, I hope it's a little bit warmer.
Too.
Are we?
Are we going cross-country skiing?
It's going to be so darn on cold out there.
It's going to be 20.
Woo! 20!
That's balmy.
Yeah. Yep. All right, folks, don't forget to give this a thumbs up. And remember, your comments don't show up. So if you've said anything awesome that you want people to be able to see down the road, take a moment and after this video comes up to leave a comment. We appreciate your thumbs up, your comments, your subscriptions. And hey, if you know anybody in the Seattle area that likes to hold a camera in their hands every once in a while, wants to be better at holding a camera in their hands every once in a while, send them over to photorec.tv/shop and say, hey, sign up for the Seattle workshop.
Or if you know anybody anywhere who likes to hold a camera, tell them to come to the channel and subscribe.
That's right.
Yeah, just share this podcast with them and hopefully they will get something, they'll learn something new.
That's right. Hopefully they'll learn something new. I learn something new just about every time. One of the reasons why this ride has been so much fun is because you all, with your comments and your teachings.
Yeah.
And Zoe says that probably the Pentax full frame will also have image stabilization. That's true. It probably will because in-body image stabilization, because all of them have so far. Very nice. 41 degrees in Australia. It is 10 here now. Probably with the sun going down for a little while. It's probably about 8 Fahrenheit. It is supposed to get down to, I think, 10 below tonight. And we're supposed to get another couple of inches. I'm going to work on my snow cave. I promised a tour of my... No, I didn't promise a tour. I would like to... Well, should we do the podcast from the snow cave next week? I'm sure that wouldn't create any issues. Any issues with melting equipment.
If we reach our next milestone on Patreon, we'll do it.
That's right. And don't forget about Patreon. Thank you so much to those who are supporting us there. It really helps. And if you haven't, take a moment and think about how valuable it is to have somebody you can reach out to and ask for professional advice on a variety of camera and business and photography questions and get thoughtful and personal answers.
Yep.
And on that note, thanks so much for watching. Have a great Friday night or Saturday morning, depending on where you're watching from. We'll see you next week. Same time. Bye-bye. Now you have to push the stop button.
Great.
I'll keep waving
Awkward.
while you do it. It's only awkward if you say it's awkward.
It's definitely awkward.